Welcome to the first turn. I'm Hyena.
I'm Llama.
And today we're talking about some Warhammer stuff. It's been a pretty heavy Warhammer 40K week, which
Yep.
to be fair, the new edition is coming up. It'll be releasing here, probably pre-order within the next few weeks. In order for timeline to work out for end of June. We're getting all kinds of faction focuses, and here's what this army will do, or the X army or Y army will do in the new edition. We had some pre-order go up for some other 40K stuff, which is the Red Terror and the new Talarn Desert Raider slash scouting unit.
Not Talarn Desert Raiders.
Yeah. And so we're getting a little bit of taste of what the new edition is going to look like. Some things are getting cleaned up, a lot more streamlined wording on the rules, which I appreciate. If you looked at how firing Overwatch works, it's you are considered hip firing or whatever the keyword is. And so I wonder if there'll be other things that make it so that you are snap fire, I think what it is, that you are snap firing. You know, if you're battle shocked, you can only snap fire. If you're, disembarked from a vehicle that exploded, you can only snap fire, things like that. Instead of being like, well, you only hit on sixes. I think they're defining the state of like being rushed, which means only hitting on sixes.
Yeah, and snapfire is a term that used to exist in 40K. I don't know if it went away for a couple editions, but it was, I think some people liked it. But there were also ways to exploit it where it just seemed like units could, no matter what, always get a chance to fire. And so, but that said, we're seeing, I think, an increase in keywords already in like USRs, which we wanted to see more of when they kind of brought it back. So I think it's a good start. The verbiage that we're used to seeing seems a little different. They're really defining, depending on what you're talking about. If you're talking about a detachment, it'll tell you, here's what units you can use, here's what rule, if any. And then there's been a difference we have seen between, like, here's rules for an entire chapter. So if you want Blood Angels, you get all this stuff. But then there's a restriction where it says cannot take any non-Blood Angels Astartes or whatever. And then at the smaller, like with stratagems and whatnot, just lots more focus on the bolded keywords instead of just like rolling them into a paragraph. I don't know. So far, it does seem cleaner up front. I'll hold my breath just because I think the start of 10th edition seemed very clean, but then they didn't use the universal special rules as much as they could have. And then rules, as they got into different waves of codex, have started to become these great big paragraphs again that at the end of the day just tell you have like a reroll somewhere. And so I'll be interested to see if they stick to this, what looks to be a very clean rules-focused design. Because no matter which game mode you're playing, if you're playing a campaign narrative thing, if you're playing combat patrol, if you're playing a match play 2,000-point game, if your core rules are clean, it's clean for everybody. So, like, hopefully this is what it'll look like. But you and I were discussing, it's kind of raised a lot of questions so far also.
Which was, what was it?
You had a lot of questions. You were we were talking about the rules, and you're like,
which one are you talking about?
So that's our point with that.
I have a lot of questions. Yes.
Moving on.
So for example, how does souping work? Is it balanced? Is it intended to be allowed in some minor way? Can I bring a knight if I'm bringing guard? Like, how do the detachments work? I mean, I could absolutely see things getting balanced when they're brought as modules. How granular the new rule is going to be. If we don't need 4 different balancing measures, right, to make a list building seem fair. Like we were talking about that with the rule of 3, right, which I believe is still probably a thing, but is it necessary if you have detachments that limit how many units you can bring and what types of units? You've got points for your army that limit how many and how many units you're allowed to bring. You've got army special rules, whatever, like that limits number of units. You've got detachment points limit the number of detachments you can bring. Like there's almost too many things restricting army list building that, like, can we get rid of some of these and let some of them happen naturally, right? Like if you had I think Age of Sigmar is a really good example of this, and we say that a lot. But sometimes when you have a rule on a unit, the unit will say you may use this once per turn per army, right? I mean, that alone disincentivizes you to bring 10 of the same unit.
I was
Because
going
no
to
matter how
say,
many of those units you have, only one can use it per turn.
well, that's just it. Is like that was such an elegant way to do it too. Instead of just putting a flat unit restriction of some kind, you discourage spamming by simply making it so no matter how many of these you have, you get to use it once. And obviously there was different. There was once per turn, and then there was once per army, and there was once per game, whatever. But like those little restrictions disincentivize spamming, where spamming is used to, like, what's the fewest amount of points I can spend to get this special rule, fewest amount of points I can get for this stratagem, fewest amount of points I can spend to get this weapon, whatever. And we've seen that in 40K going all the way back to 5th edition, especially, where it was pay the points or the tax rather to get this one weapon or this one rule or this one thing. We would watch entire games of 40K where the meta wasn't even defined by which army is performing well. It was defined by a single stratagem, like in one codex, where it was like, oh, Space Marines suck, I would never play them. Then it's like, why are 38% of the players playing this list? And they're like, oh, because there's this one CP stratagem that on this one unit is all of a sudden. So a whole army gets built around like literally one CP. So, and then it'll get spammed because you can do it redundantly. In Age of Sigmar, they were like, well, no matter how many of this awesome unit you have, that special rule gets to only be used once in a turn. So I think that was a really neat way to disincentivize spamming, because you're paying the points for that special rule. So, like, do you want to pay for 3 of those units when you get to use the rule once? I don't know, unless the unit is just statted really well. Yeah, I think that's a clean way to do it.
Then balance the unit, right? Like,
yeah,
if Imperial Knights were 200 points apiece, you can bring 10 of them in a list. Like, oh, that's too many. We need a cap. How many you can bring? Like, when you're doing balance the wrong way, then like the unit's too cheap if you can bring that many. You think the corn mower is too good? Okay, well, it costs 700 points. You can't bring more. You can't bring more than 2 of them in a list because they're too many points. We've balanced it, right? We don't need the rule of 3 there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's a better way to do it. I didn't think that the rule of 3 was kind of a hokey, kind of silly way of doing it. Like, it made sense when we had back when we had force organization charts and you had slots, right?
Well, that's just it. I think they were trying to emulate that without having it still continue.
Right. But then you do this thing where it's like, well, there's detachments now, and we've got separate modules. It's like, well, does each module, each detachment have a limit of 3 of the unit? Right? Or is it 3 across the entire army? Because that's a little silly. For a while there, they had even more than that, where I think it was like 3 different units. It was like a Tau commander, chapter masters, and the Tyranid Prime. It wasn't even like the Hive Tyrant. It was something silly, where like 1 per detachment, even though there's a rule of 3, and you have the HQ slots. Each one of these are unique per detachment. You need to bring 3 separate detachments
to get 3
to bring
of that model.
3 of this model. Whereas every other model in the goddamn game was, whatever. Fill your HQ slots with them up to 3.
Yep.
It's just like, why? Like, that's such a weird way to try to balance things.
And then points-wise, you usually couldn't fit 3 copies of that detachment in anyway. And exactly. So, or you had to.
So really, it's like, you've got the rule of 3, but for commanders, you have a rule of 2.
Right.
Like,
well, and the way they got it wrong, was it in 8th when they had to work men, right? They had the Loyal 32, those guardsmen where you could take a whole regiment that unlocked CP, unlocked rerolls, and it was 180 points for the entire thing. And so literally every army that started with the keyword Imperium would take that and then build. Whereas if you were saying Necrons, your cheapest detachment was like 560 points to have a Lord and like.
It might have been more than that.
Yeah.
Honestly, it might have been more, because like units of Necron warriors were minimum of 20. It was minimum of 20 of them, and so they were like 170 points for a unit of 20 of them, or more than that. And so it was like, oh, your minimum cost attachment is like 680 points. It's like,
yeah,
really? And that in that edition of the game, the more attachments you were able to fit in your army, the more expendable command points you would generate. It was like it wasn't like everyone starts with some, and the more you bring, the more scattered your forces, and so you get reduced CP. It was like, no, the more you bring, the more CP you get. And so like Imperium was like, here, bring this 190 point thing or 172 points, whatever it was, and it was like you unlock 5 CP from that. It was like,
Yeah.
a game only has up to like, I think the most you can get was like 18 or something.
Yep.
You know, maybe because it's like certain named characters let you have extra CP, and then 3 detachments got you however many each. And so it was like the fact that that one little module got you so much value was like, that's not fair. Like every other Xenos does nothing similar.
Mm-mm.
Every other army has nothing similar to this. It's a little ridiculous.
Well, they thankfully drifted away from that, and it seems they got a CP system that's a little bit better. I really like the one in AoS where you sort of get one as your turn goes. Like,
I think you could just get rid of CPs and say every phase you can use one stratagem from your list. That's it. If you use the stratagem in the shooting phase, but the stratagem can be used in multiple phases, you can only use it once per turn. Right? Get rid of the points, get rid of the point tracking, and say,
get rid of the little
stratagems.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got all these stratagems. You should just use one every phase that you can, that it's possible to, and then assume everyone's going to use one. 3 to 4 of them per player turn. Over the course of 5 turns, and balance things around.
They could even have it be on a card, so you could just discard it to know you've used it.
Right.
Like,
yeah, or that too.
Break something down.
Here's your 12 stratagems you get. You use each of them once per game. Once you've used it, you flip the card. It's discarded. You can't use that for the rest of the game. Use it wisely, right? And then it doesn't matter if you've got stratagems that would have been powerful and been like 2 CP stratagems. If everyone has a powerful 2 CP stratagem, as long as they're only usable once per game, like,
yep,
what's it matter? Like, and then maybe it make something like, your assassins that sabotage your opponent. It's like, oh, well, randomly select one of your opponent's 12 stratagems and they discard that card and they can't use that this game. That would be a pretty powerful ability.
It would be, yep.
Or it'd be like, oh, Gilliman is such a good commander, you can use one of your stratagems that you've previously used in the game again. Something, like there's ways to balance around this kind of stuff. I don't like the bookkeeping of like, the number of CP points, or if like you can only choose 6 stratagems, then you have those set aside. Those are the ones you use, because you don't get the same 6, right? Every single time, the 6 best ones.
It's with a tabletop game. It's funny. It's like if we're talking a role playing game, then like, yeah, you bookkeep, right? Because there's not all this physical interactivity. But like with the tabletop game, you've already got minis and terrain and markers and dice, and like having an extra thing that you have to, well, I've used this. Wait, I've got you used 2. How many do you have? Okay. So yeah, that bookkeeping should probably go away. And you're right. That would be easy since they're printing all these cards now anyway. You could just do that.
Well, they also like making people buy paper products.
Yep.
This would require you to buy paper products, or, whatever, make your own, whatever it is. But it's an easier and simple way to, like, you don't have to do the math, you don't have to do the bookkeeping, you don't have to track it, it's just, here's my things, lay them out, flip them, it's easier that way.
So you're not a fan of the way stratagems currently work?
No, I've not liked them the entire time. I really haven't. I've not liked that CP system ever. I really haven't. I don't like how many stratagems there are, because early edition, 9th edition, when they were introduced, it was like 30 of them. You have 30 stratagems to keep track of.
No, it was 8th, but yeah,
8th edition, yeah.
But again, if you were an Imperium player, it was like, oh, every unit in your army, you get to pull the stratagems from their codex also. Yeah. So that's why they would start with an Astra Militarum unit, a Space Marine Scout unit, a Dark Angels this, whatever that, and all of a sudden
some of the wordings on them weren't correct, so you could use an Astra Militarum, stratagem on a unit that was in a Space Marine army, because it was like, target an enemy unit, all units attacking this get this benefit, but it didn't specify like Astra Militarum units, so it'd be like, okay, well, my Space Marine Devastators can now get the benefit of that. So it's like,
yep. And they could always have the most. And so it's like, well, I have 5 codexes of stratagems. I also generate all these extra ones every turn. and because I'm Imperium rerolls everywhere anyway. But yeah, when they switched it to like this finite number of command points, it was better. AoS does it where you just kind of like get one every turn to spend, kind of. But you're right.
And again, you have to spend them in that turn. You can't just stack them up and bank them
Right.
and use them all later. It's like you use your CPs in the turn you generate them, or you reset the next turn. If you use them all in the first half of the battle round and you don't have anything left over for the second half of the battle round, and well, maybe you got some value out of it, but then if you need them, maybe you didn't spend them right.
We have seen that they pointed out that they've eliminated stacking stratagems on one target.
It's fine. I mean, that's a good start.
It is long overdue. I mean, again, just like there are some lists built around stratagems, one of those was the Adeptus Custodes for a while, where their units were all overcosted and died easier than they should, garbage. So one big Death Star unit would get 4 stratagems stacked on it at the start of a turn, and then it was like unkillable.
And then you have the right character attached to it, the right command trait, and the right relic, and all this stuff. So it was like, well, I hit way harder than I should. I'm unkillable. My unit fights before you do, and when I fight you, I get to I get to pile into you even if you aren't in combat with me. And then if I fight you and I kill a model, I get to fight again. It was like all this stuff. I was like, oh my, maybe not all of that, but it was like that. Where it's like, what do you do? What do you do about that? Limit the stratagems, right? Like you limit that. You make the units better on their own. You limit the stratagems that you can use.
Well, and that was in looking at some of the faction focuses they've given us. They obviously only are giving us a drop in the bucket for the totality of what the rules will look like. Although allegedly all of our codexes will be valid until they get a new one. Be interested to see the giant FAQ on day one, which it sounds like there will be. But I was looking at the Tyranid one, obviously, as an army that has interested me for a long time. And the verbiage, again, we see is very clean, very specific about who gets it and where. We've seen some new keywords that I don't think we quite know how they work yet. So that'll be interesting to watch as this fleshes out. But I don't know if it tells us everything about how the army is going to play yet. I don't know. They haven't gotten around to armies you play yet, have they?
No, not yet. I mean, everyone plays Space Marines or Chaos Space Marines, one of the two. Space Marine detachments seem fine. Like I'm still confused about some things, like especially like how an army's rules work, right? Like right now in Space Marines, we've got like Oath of the Moment, right? That kind of thing. As like if you're playing Space Marines, you get this rule, and then if you bring detachments, you get other special rules. Well, a lot of the rules we're getting from list building is based on detachment. And the restrictions we're getting based on faction that you choose within your faction, sub-factions, only say, well, you can't draw units from other chapters. But it's like, okay, well, but if I'm Blood Angels, what do I get? Well, with this detachment, your Blood Angels Death Company get that. It's like, okay, but what about the army? Does the army get nothing anymore? Is that I get it's a restriction, and it's like, okay, for named character purposes and whatever, you can only draw from one sub faction, right? I can't have Dante and Gilliman.
It's actually like the armies of renown in Age of Sigmar.
Right. It's what's more like to me. But even the armies of renown can still have an overarching like army rule, kind of. Like maybe they don't pull from Codex or Battle Tome Skaven. You get this army of renown rule, but it's still like an overarching thing.
Well,
right.
So according to GW, like I said, all codexes will still be valid until their codex comes around. So I'm guessing Blood Angels, as an example, since that's the one that showed us, would still have their codex supplement, and then this is just a new detachment for them that they can play. So, because they said they're going to release 70 detachments on day one. So it's going to be like 3 per army, and then although Space Marines, I'm sure we'll get more, but it's but your codex is still good too. So these are actually add-ons. So instead of us trimming down to an index hammer, they're actually like giving you more you can do day one until your codex comes back around. So that's how I read it right now. I actually think it's going to be a little messy when you combine 2 rule sets,
unless they've accounted for everything. Yeah, it could be kind of messy.
Although on the more specific side, yeah, we'll see if they've accounted for everything. So far, their verbiage has been trying to do so, but it's GW, so I don't know. Maybe they can't help themselves. It's funny, on a very specific note, the Norn Assimilator for Tyranids is the melee monster that never sees play ever, because he costs more than the Norn Emissary, who has a built-in invulnerable save and a psychic shooting attack.
Mm-hmm.
And the same rule for scoring, and can still kind of fight stuff. So, like, no one ever played the Assimilator. It's funny, as one of the stratagems they showed off was specifically for the Assimilator. Like, no other unit. It is specifically when any phase when a friendly Norn Assimilator unit suffers a mortal wound. Yeah. And what does it do? It gives them a feel no pain. Because he didn't have an invulner or feel no pain.
So, mortal wounds don't really exist in that game, really, though. Like, devastating wounds, which was the previous biggest source of mortal damage, doesn't do that anymore. So, like, a grenade? There's just so few mortal wounds. It's a weird. Maybe they'll change that. I don't know. Maybe we'll see that.
Mortal wounds is definitely mortal wounds become in Age of Sigmar. Yeah.
Right. I was actually re-looking though at when speaking of, we were talking about Space Marines and detachments and how the detachment better not be the only rule that an army gets. Because I was looking at the Phobos Scout Squad detachment.
Okay.
And God, it is dog shit. Like, it's really bad. So Phobos generally, they don't have much damage output. They have no special weapons. Their melee is lackluster. They have bolters, basically. They don't really do much. Nothing in Phobos army does much. Their detachment rule is this. In your shooting phase, after your units have moved, the Phobos squad or scout squad can nominate a visible enemy within 12. Within 12. So normally when you're outside of 12 and you haven't shot yet, you're in hiding, right?
Right.
If you're infantry or beasts or cavalry, I think you hide. Well, this rule is called nowhere to hide. So you get within 12 inches of them, you target them, you're like, I see you. All my other units in my army see you as well. I think the other armies, the units in the army only get to see them within 15 instead of 12. What does that matter? Right? Like, in the very fringe case of one unit moves up, it's outside of the 12-inch detection range, right? For a hidden unit. And they're like, oh man, I'm 14 inches away. I can't see this unit because they're hiding. The scout squad's like, I got you, son. Moves up within 12. It's like, boom, you get 3 extra inches of detection range. You can shoot them now. Like, it's such a small thing. Like, if the scout or Phobos squad moved within 12 of a unit that's hiding, it's like, lit them up and like, here they are. And then anything, no matter how far away, like if they lose hidden, right, they're no longer hiding, and anything on the board that can draw line of sight to them can see them and shoot them. And it's like, okay, I see huge value there in that, right? Like, I'm taking a huge risk in getting a pretty weak melee shooting unit into 12 inches of a unit. But the other unit has to be within 15. It's like, how many times are we going to see where it's like, all right, I'm going to use this rule, but then the unit that wants to shoot can get within 12 inches themselves? You know what I mean? Like, what is 15 inches compared to 12, really? And then you had to have taken this detachment specifically for that. It's just like, man, that's pretty weak. The only thing that I can see as being useful is the fact that they have a stratagem that makes it so that one of your squads can go back into hiding. Or they can shoot without being revealed or something. Like, it's just, I don't know.
Oh, I guess. Yeah, some of these are bad. Like the higher imperatives detachment rule for the Tyranids was only affects the Norn unit, so not even your whole army.
Mm-hmm.
And it just once per battle per unit in your command phase. What it does is whatever you chose for their singular purpose, which is their little objective rule. So they either get OC 15 on a thing or they like do something against characters. They get to change which one they chose. That's an entire detachment rule.
Yeah.
Not good. Like,
Whereas if you look at something like the speeder detachment, so all land speeders, swarm, hailstorms, hammer strikes, thunder strikes that have the speeder keyword, they get to do a free ingress move on your first time, which is a scout move.
yep.
And then the enhancement they get is for a unit of speeders, they can all reroll their damage and attacks characteristic. So good. But I just being able to move all of your speeders at the beginning of the game is huge.
Yeah.
It's way better than being like, oh, 3 extra inches of detection.
Oh, yeah, 3 extra inches of visibility. Like, what? Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. Yikes. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, if all of the detachment rules are just that are these one detachment point detachments, right? Which is a lot of what these are. You bring a very specific unit type into the army, you get a very minor benefit for them. If all of them are on that power level, I think we're okay. Because like the other option was we have these two detachment point detachments that are basically a themed force army, right? Here's your Blood Angel army. Here's your Dark Templar army, Black Templar army. If those give you an even bigger benefit than a one, because it's so restrictive, then I could see it being fine. But if you're doing like, I want 3 separate detachments and each type of unit gets a small benefit, then fine,
Yeah, and we don't have the full details on that, but they did make it sound like the sort of army-wide detachments that are found in most codexes are going to be like the 2 detachment points, and then these ones they're showing off now are going to be 1. So it's like basically like saying 1,400 points of your army will have this like bigger benefit, and then 600 points will have this focused on this little thing. If that's how it continues, cool. I'm sure we'll see more every week from now until pre-order, which sounds like it's in June. But what is releasing sooner is the Cities of Sigmar update. Their massive expansion of models that we were shown at Adepticon. And it looks like they're just all coming at once. There's not a...
Yeah, so, I mean, I saw a price list of all the stuff that's going for pre-order next week, because stores have to pre-order by, like, Tuesday of this week, basically, before pre-order goes live for the public. And so vendors are given, like, a price list of what all the new products are, and they all come out on the Sundays. So it looked like the Cog Fort, the new Underworld Warband, all 3 of the wizards. There's a named wizard and 2 unnamed wizards. The Gate Gargants, the Terrain Piece, the Gallants, the Grenadiers, and then a Spearhead and a Regiment of Renown are all coming out at the same time.
And by the way, I don't think when the new Spearheads come out for an army, it invalidates the previous one. I think they just added. It's just another way to play.
The Battle Tome. I don't think that the characters by themselves are coming out yet. That came from like the Spearhead box. I don't see like the duelist guy or the warrior priest.
Well, there's the Forge Priest, the Pyrocaster, the Nell Mage. Yeah, those are the ones I see there. Interesting though how they didn't get a piece of scenery that in any way, shape, or form resembles what their rumors were.
Yeah. It does look like the Cog Fort is going to be $210.
$210?
Yeah, which is like Imperial Knight cost.
Yeah. That thing better be big.
Yeah. Oof. I still get one. But I've got all kind of plans to build my own like regiments of renown Cog Forts for all kinds of different armies, theming them around which armies are going to be brought in. I've got all kinds of plans. Kit bash, all kinds of cool stuff. So
I don't think you're alone in that.
Big project for me.
I've actually seen a lot of chatter about the Cog Fort, like just because Age of Sigmar, 40K, whatever game system you're in, that thing is like, I think you could turn it into that. There's a chance this is going to be a really popular kit, or 0 people will buy it and they'll all just make their own. But like, I think it's more than likely going to be a very popular kit that will give them it'll give GW ideas that they need to make like an army that's cog forts or something. But
I
instead
mean,
of
there already will be an army of renown that is all cog forts.
that is one. Yep.
Yeah.
And it looks like literally every army is going to be able to buy one as a regiment of renown, kind of mercenary,
which was cool. Like, I'm all for that. I think that's great. Like I said, I've got plans for all kinds of scratch built ones. I mean, I'll buy at least one, because I want an official one, and then like my themes for the other ones are gonna be crazy. Like my Ideth one's gonna be in the back of a giant crab. Like it's gonna be no parts of the cog fort will go into making my scratch built cog forts. For some of them, like maybe I'll buy one for Skaven and turn it into like lightning cannons and stuff, and get that mounted on top. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, the hobby is expensive. It's always been expensive. It's tariffs and inflation is not helping any of that. It just does kind of seem like as we get older, it's like, oh, we're doing better in life. The hobby doesn't feel any more affordable. What I mean? Like it's.
And it isn't unique to Warhammer. I mean, I know Games Workshop's
100%.
the big bad boogeyman, but it's like every system that has a game, you look at the models and it's like, oh, that's pretty expensive. Or you have to print them yourselves for some games. So it is expensive. That's a hot tamale for that cog fort. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be like somewhere in Mega Gargant to small Imperial Knight size, but I'm just assuming the worst. I mean, we know it's not going to be like Archaon tall, probably, but looks big, and I think a lot of people.
It's always so deceptive, though. It's really deceptive based on the models you see around it, because it's hard to gauge scale. Like it really is out of the pictures. Things end up looking a lot bigger than they are, because the detail is so fine. We see that all the time. So I want to say it's going to be smaller than I think it is. I don't know. We'll see. What's the new tiny Imperial Knight? Like the tiny full size Imperial Knight that's coming out.
Oh, I don't
remember that.
Yeah.
The new design basically for
a medium knight.
Full size. Right. Maybe like that. Who knows?
Yep.
No,
I just know sometimes we've expected something to be big and then it like wasn't. I've seen it go the other way too. It's just whenever it's pitched as this huge model, we then get it and we're like, oh, like and an Imperial Knight was actually very big, and Archaon was actually very big. And then it was like the Great Unclean one was bigger than I thought he was going to be. But then it was like with these ones, it was like the Mega Gargant, that looks smaller than the one they previewed to us, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. Now I just kind of think these are all going to be tiny.
I don't know. I'm excited. It's all coming out relatively quickly, right? Like it's all there's no big pause. There's no big gap in between when the announcement is and when it's releasing. But again, we're with this coming up, then like we're right on the heels of the rumors again. Like
I was going to say for Age of Sigmar, now we're back to kind of caught up, and we know the General's Handbook's coming. We talked last week about, are they going to goof that up and release it like at the same time as the new 40K edition? That's kind of bad. Now you're not going to get any attention on this new season of your second biggest game. So I guess we'll look forward to what that looks like. But yeah, as far as rumors, I think we're kind of we're back to speculation territory.
Yep. But with 40K, I mean, we'll be plenty occupied with. I mean, new editions bring so much new stuff.
Yep.
I do also wonder what new is coming with 40K, because we have the starter box, right, and we've got kind of the preview of the event, the preview event, plus the contents of that box and what we're going to be getting. We thought there's going to be more, right? The box itself was pretty obvious stuff, but like every other edition start where you get a box like this, there is, I mean, it's only half of it, less than half.
It's
what comes for those factions. Like, what else are we going to see? What else are we going to get? What's coming for orcs? What's coming for Space Marines to supplement what we're seeing here? We'll see that soon. Did the pre-order for that happen yet? That box? No. Okay.
Armageddon? No.
Okay, just making sure. I make sure I didn't miss that. I didn't think I did.
No, it's June.
This would have had to been this weekend, right?
It's like June 30th or something is when it's supposed to land. But It's yeah, we expect, and rumors are thick, that Space Marines and Orcs will each have a part 2 that's a wave of separate kits. And some of the stuff in the starter box will then eventually be in separate kits. So there's a lot for them. Not worried about their having a good time. We'll see how the blend of old and new rules work. It's first time in a little while they've done that. They usually have sort of done an index reset on an edition, but maybe they didn't want those ladder codex players to feel bad, like that one year where Astra Militarum and
I mean, it was
World Edition
bad.
came out like 3 months later. The new edition dropped. Yeah,
The same weekend they came out, they announced the new edition, and immediately everyone lost.
Yeah.
Lost enthusiasm because they announced that also the codex books weren't going to be valid for the next edition. So it was like, well, why did you even release the books then? Why even bother?
And I don't know how much more you and I can like push that fact that we just wish they would move everything to be the digital, and like then they wouldn't have to deal with that sort of stuff. But yeah, we don't see them move much on that, or they're doing it just too slow. It's the slowest Band-Aid rip ever.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like if the Band-Aid were duct tape and it was stuck to your entire forearm, like
Or your entire shin, right? That's bad. That's a bad one. That's a real bad one.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm optimistic about the new edition though. What we're gonna see.
I lost interest in 40K. Like I still keep up with it, and obviously the models are cool and the lore is super cool, but I lost a little interest in it. It was weird. I played some games right out of the gate when 10th came out. I mean, my army got spoiled, right? But then that was it. I just never really was back into it. So yeah, a new edition kind of feels, I don't think the rules were that bad.
But you kind of have to be thick in it, right? Like
you do.
Again, with how accessible army rules are, like you have to do a lot of research to know what your opponent can do and what what their rules are, right? Because the rules are not readily accessible to everybody. It's kind of the biggest downfall is what we've talked about with unlocking rules behind digital paywalls and stuff like that. It's hard to get a full picture of the game. It's just like it's exhausting. Like unless you're thick in it and you're keeping up with it and you're doing it constantly, it's it's a lot to catch up on. You know what I mean? Like when you finally get back to it, it's kind of exhausting to the point where it's like, I mean, I played a few when everyone's rules were visible, and then they started getting locked, and it's like, well, now I guess I'll just hobby.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and otherwise it's like, what's the alternative? You're going to buy every codex or battle tome in an edition. That's like $1,500, like almost. Yeah. So I just don't. I don't know. They really got to stop having the books be the way the armies are delivered, what dictates the schedule, because it does. Like they have to wait until that's ready to go and published, and I don't know. It delays their playtest, or it makes their playtesting inaccurate by the time the rules come out. Yeah, and then having to pay for the rules that are updated in real time by buying something where the rules are not updated. Yeah.
I'd rather just buy codes. Give me a cheap book code that I can actually just unlock everything. I don't need the paper book. I don't need you to spend all the production time making the book and everything. Just let me unlock the rules, cheaply. And I really would.
And I think you're stuck in this weird spot between like OG players of the game who've been around since the beginning, and then like the newer people getting into it. The OG players I sometimes hear, and I was around then. I'm old, but I'm willing to move on to just a digital update in real time, make it less expensive, no book to carry around, etc. But there's a lot of people who are like, there's always been a book, I always want a book. Like, there's always been a codex, so I'll wait for my codex. And like, I've heard there are stores that you have to use the printed codex. They like digital stuff they don't consider. It's like, wow. So that sounds not only like a miserable environment, but I just think it creates more problems at this point than it solves. Why even have rules in there? Because they're just not good right away. I don't know.
Speaking of what is good right out of the box, uh, I did get my Spearhead box for City of Ash, and
Ah,
it's probably the box I put together the quickest.
it's already together.
Yeah. Um, it's I was really excited when I got it.
Did you
Again,
put together the Skaven first or the Stormcast first? Or the cities, I
obviously,
mean.
yeah, yeah. Well, I put together one City of Sigmar hero, the priest. Um, 'Cause I wanted to see, what could be done with him. I've got some other like warrior priest models, and I wanted to see how they would compare. Like you remember the first Warhammer Quest box, Silver Tower had that warrior priest in it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
it's just another one, right? The aesthetic doesn't exactly fit. He looks like an ancient version of this new priest, but totally proxy him. Have unique looking models. Gives you a reason to use that guy because I've had him for a long time and have never been able to use him. I could see bringing two priests in a single list, but yeah. So I put him together and I was like, what am I doing? Skaven put together Crixit, which was a really good looking model. A lot less weird looking in person. He's a very weird looking model in photographs because he's got so much volume to him. I actually might have him handy.
That's interesting is I think that happens a lot is when we see a two-dimensional picture with a studio paint job, it's sometimes hard to get a sense of the detail, the motion, the three-dimensionality. Yeah. Yeah. And then you see him in bare plastic in hand, and it's very different.
Yeah, so he's a lot. Again, it's one of those things where like he's smaller than you think he would be, and the motion in him is a lot less crazy. When you put them together, you see like, oh, there's just a Skaven body under there, and he's just got cloth wrapping around him. Okay, I see what this is. It's kind of hard to get a picture of it. I think some of those Curse City models, no, the Curse City, the other starter box. Uh,
City of Ash. Wait, no, is it the
Here, let's grab it. The dark water box has the same kind of problem. A couple of the heroes in there, they were hard to photograph because they were so there was no good there's no good side of them, right? Like one of the questing knights is wearing like really beat up armor, and like everyone was making fun of how her face was ugly. But it's like, all right, ugly people exist. Yeah, no, I'm like, sorry, they do. So it's like every single model doesn't need to be beautiful and picturesque and idyllic. Like you can have some ugly models. You can have some ugly faces. They've been doing that. A lot of the Cities of Sigmar models, especially like their steel helms and stuff. There's some ugly faces in there.
they're basically peasants that were drafted to war. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
And so like everyone doesn't need to be a supermodel. Um, but it's like, okay, so you get that model in hand, put together in person, you're like, okay, so whatever complaints and fears people had about some of these models, when you get them in person, you're like, there's no problem with this at all. This is fine.
nope, yep.
So I don't know. It's silly. It is nice getting your hands on them. I had no fear that this was going to be an amazing box, and it is. Like I said, the gallants are exactly what the army has needed as far as like an elite kind of unit goes. I wish they hit harder. I wish they were more killy because really they only feel like slightly upgraded steel helms. They're stormcasts is what they are. They're the same exact stat profile as a stormcast, basic stormcast troop. But they don't really do any more damage. I wish they were like great weapon infantry. They could stay one wound, but make them two damage. Something make them hit harder, because the army needs to be able to hit harder. It doesn't have any melee punch. The grenadiers, I guess, are kind of like a skirmishy unit that does both. They don't hit or wound great, but their bardiche is a 2 damage weapon in melee. Plus, they've got like the grenades and the shotguns and the flamethrower and everything. I think they're the damage dealing unit that the army has kind of needed. I think that they're going to fill that role. Um, Tigers can't be choosers. Maybe something will change in their codex. I doubt it. Maybe something will change next edition. Maybe something,
Well,
whatever. We'll
they
see some
haven't.
changes.
Have they leaked to us much about what's in their battle tome?
No, I don't think I've seen anything really.
Yeah,
Because I think we
they
got
showed off some of the
the leaks we
contour gun
got.
profiles, I think, but that was like,
The leak we got was that the non-human stuff, the non pre-guild stuff, is gone.
Right.
So like you lost your Imperial Griffin, you lost your Amber Mage on Griffin, you lost steam tanks, we lost I think the Luminarch is gone. It's unfortunate. We lost all the Dark Elf stuff, we lost the Dwarf stuff. That's all like it'll be given the 1 year Legends expiration date. It's basically what we'll see. They're not in the book, but you'll get here's your Cities of Sigmar supplement. Expires June of 2027. It'll be that kind of treatment, I bet.
Okay.
So we still get another year with all this stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as what this current Cities of Sigmar battle tome has in it, or what the rules are, I don't think we've seen much.
Right. The most recent books have all been pretty big divergence from what the index gave them, right? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was like battle orders and stuff that were in the books for or in the indexing because that was their kind of their rule. The previous version of that from last edition was really bad. It was so restrictive and so specific. It opened up pretty well in the index, so it was actually like everything can benefit from everything else. So it was a pretty balanced book, I think.
Well, and
It
with
just didn't really have the units, you know.
well, and with most recent battle tomes, they haven't gone vanilla. They've made every army pretty darn interesting.
Lately.
Yeah, and so I have to imagine this is going to be in that same vein. It's not going to be just the index ported, and it's not just going to be, or it's not going to be like Slaves where it actually went with less.
Down, yeah.
Speaking of, it's like I was looking at some data. There weren't many tournaments over the weekend, but I was looking at overall data so far since the battle scroll dropped. And again, some of the people who do their graph keeping, like Warhammer Rob and guys like that, they are a little confusing the stats or why they choose what they do, where it'll be a thing like Wohammer will do that thing where it's like the number of armies or the likelihood with which you'll get 3 wins in a tournament. So even if you go 3-2, and so it was based on how many times it has gone 3-2, and based on the matchup, how likely it is to go 3. I don't know how they come up with that one, but another one was a graph that was showing which armies get off to a fast start, like which ones win their first rounds and only lose when they run into a boogeyman in the later rounds, kind of thing. And
which is such a weird statistic. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what that's useful for.
Well, so what it was saying is like new players or when the field is widest, and so you get kind of random pairing against others like you, your army is great. It can autopilot its way to wins like that. Its own rules carry it with very limited tactical adjustment by the player. But then when they get into later rounds, going against better players and other top tier lists, all of a sudden it loses. And so it was a very different stat. The different stats were like average win rate, period, which is, I think, the one that typically matters most when an army is represented well. So if an army is only 4% of the field or less, and it's not showing up in huge numbers, then the win rate's going to be skewed greater on each event, right? Whereas an army that shows up all the time, like Stormcast Eternals, it's a more accurate stat, their overall win rate. The second was how many times they get to 3 wins or the likelihood they get to 3 wins. And then the other was like how fast of a start they get off to. So by doing it those different ways, you're supposed to get this kind of overall picture of what's happening. But I just think when it comes down to it, the overall win percentage, when an army is represented enough, is like a fine stat. And it's usually much closer together between the top army and the bottom army. So for example, Fire Slayers, Hedonites of Slaanesh, and like Caradrons, I think, were all in that bottom. Like they get out to fast wins in a tournament when they're playing against randos or against newer players or against themselves. But as soon as they run into an A or S tier list, as soon as they run into the more experienced players, they just lose bad. And so it was like Hedonites of Slaanesh, looked like they had a really good win rate, but they were getting armies to 3 wins, but then never winning more than that. They had like no 4-1s and 0 5-0s. And then if you're not represented enough, it can skew it. For example, Ogre Maw tribes were only represented once in tournaments over the last weekend, but that made it look like they had a 76% win rate because they won like 4 rounds or whatever. Yeah. Oh, can't hear you.
It's almost
There
sorry.
you go.
It's almost enough to the point where like you don't even include that because there's not enough data.
Yep.
Like you have to have a certain like a floor, right, for how many data points
And
you
they
get
usually
before you
try
draw
to.
any kind of
Yeah.
conclusion. You know.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and so it was tough when it's like for the year 2026, if one army's been represented a total of only like 80 times, well, those numbers are going to now be skewed even by one event. And whereas some other armies like Stormcast, or right now the second most played is Lumineth Realm Lords, those had 400 and 500 represented, so their stats are going to be much more accurate in terms of their win-loss ratio. It was interesting is like, I think Lumineth Realm Lords has the most 5-0s right now. In fact, I think it was triple what the next one was. Yeah.
You know what? I am not surprised. I really am not. They're good. They and we see that with which probably you said it was Caradron's. It was
Fire Slayers,
Heed Knights, and Fire Slayers. If those three armies have both have three things have a few things in common. They haven't gotten much attention. They don't have new books yet. I think maybe Heed Knights does.
I don't think Heed Knights does. No.
But they don't get very much attention, right? They don't, in terms of unit support and updates and stuff. They don't really get much. They are very so limited roster. They are very one note type of armies, right? Like you build an army with them, and they only can really do one thing, right? They're all like the Heed Knights. No matter which units you choose, they need to get into melee. They all do damage, but they're all squishy. There's no like tanky unit. There's no quick skirmish. Go get this. You're cheap, but go get an objective. Like all of their cavalry that's quick is expensive. Like there's no, I don't know. And they're not durable. They wither to shooting because it's lots of 5-up saves. Caradrons, like what does your Caradron army consist of? It's a big block of shooting units and some boats. And if you figure out the way to screen those out or to effectively shut down the boats and the shooting, impose penalties to the shooting or screen them out or obscure yourself so they can't see you and shoot you, like it nullifies that army.
Yeah.
Well,
it was interesting is those armies were also falling into another stat where they were almost always losing round one of a tournament. They would lose round one, be in the losers bracket, and then get their wins. And so then they would get 3 wins or whatever.
Right.
Which is an interesting, and so that can skew it. That 3-2 is very different than someone who got out to a 3-0 start and then lost 2 tough games. Like, so it was like, I did think that those graphs were relevant, kinda, but it was still hard to read. I think the average viewer was just looking at bars and assuming that one that's really long must be a broken army or something. It was like, well, no, read it. It's broken into 3 things, and that's so. I don't know how good all those are when they get that granular with their stats, but
it's definitely interesting at least. And if you're
is
a stat nerd, it tells you more. But like, people want just a sound bite, right? They just want it boiled down to good or bad.
Yep.
Right. That's what they want it. Which is goodest, which is baddest.
One of the interesting stats, though, was like which armies saw the most shift in representation after the battle scroll.
So which army became more and less popular by magnitude?
Yeah. Okay. And it was like Iron Jaws definitely saw the most movement in terms of play. Now, the Iron Jaws, just like Orcs and Blood Bowl, I found out, they're not the best, but they are possibly the most popular. A lot of people like them. I mean, for a lot of reasons, they're fun to paint, whatever, but they're good enough. And so Iron Jaws have been popular the entire time they've existed, but they were one note for a long time. It was just charge turn 1 with pigs. That was it. And then now they were in this weird spot when this edition launched. They were not good. They were always in the bottom for win rate. And then something happened in this latest update, this latest balance pass, and now they're getting a lot of play. And I don't know the full extent because it's not an army I pay that much attention to, but they didn't just get point structs. They had some rules changes, and whatever it did has made them not like OP, but they are now getting wins and they're now showing up in numbers. So it's good to see that they can make those adjustments. But again, if you have any original printed material of them, that's no longer valid.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Because now rules have changed. Stormcast are still one of those that generally statted high in all graphs. So they're obviously the most represented. So their data is everywhere. They get a lot of 4-win games, not necessarily a lot of 5-0, or a lot of 4-win tournaments, not a lot of 5-0. They're still one of the best, no matter which mission is chosen, because of their ability to drop. But one thing that was found is among the battle plans that people choose, in 40K, it's always been the case that when there's like a mission or a primary objective you choose or a secondary, there's always one that's better than every other one. And you'll see 98% of the players always take that one. In Age of Sigmar, we saw that the battle plans were all, what are there, 12? Something like that. They're all taken at an almost even spread, except for 2. The Life Roots and Paths of the Fae are both so bad and do nothing that like they never get taken. They were like 10% of the players take them or something like that. Everybody else takes all these other ones. But it was good to see that among the battle plans, there's an even spread, which means the rules are similar in level enough. But that brings me all the way back to something you said earlier about 40K, and where I hope they improve is if the detachment rules are all simple, vanilla, don't do that much, then it's fine when it's like your one detachment point thing. Just like this sort of thing. Your battle plans, your stratagems, whatever, when they're all kind of like not as important as the units themselves, I think, that then we've seen that in Age of Sigmar where it was like, oh, the heroic trait you pick isn't like game breaking, so whatever, pick whichever one you want. I would rather rules are not bland. I wish there was a variety of things and style things, but like I want the rules that you buy to not be as impactful as whatever the unit can do anyway.
Right. Yep,
So
I agree.
Think of that. It's like the battle plans are all just mild enough that you can pick any of them except for like maybe these 2, and they're all pretty good.
Yeah, make it so that the units themselves shine, not like the army you put them in shine, because that's where we come into again the problems with Space Marines, for example, where it's like, okay, we've always sub factions. Some of the sub factions do tons for the army.
Yeah,
some of them do nothing. The units themselves being good, and then the army you choose, the special rules you choose for the army being minor, makes it so that the differences between those armies, unique things that they provide, is less of a it's less important, right? If the units basically do the same thing, but in this one they get a slight benefit, and this one they get a slight, whatever, that feels better, right? Like, what was it? White Scars in 9th edition got advance and charge and retreat and charge, advance, run and charge, and retreat all in the same turn, and +1 damage on the charge. It was something insane like
I think all their weapons counted as assault or something like that too.
Yeah, it was what? I think the assault was a stratagem, so they could retreat and still assault weapon shoot. Or it was something like that. But it was something crazy where it's like, okay, so you've got all these melee units that in every other sub faction is moopy, right? Like, oh, they've got a few attacks at 1 damage, but if you make them a White Scar, any unit that charges all of a sudden is doubling their damage output.
And by the way, no extra points.
No extra points. It was like, that's insane. Blood Angels had a thing where they were +1 to wound on the charge. Which was very good still. It was still very, very good. But the damage increase of getting +1 to wound against most things, say you wounded on a 4 or a 5 and it's higher toughness than you, is really like a 50% increase in damage, right? You go from wounding a third of the time to half the time, that's 50% increase, right? 2 out of 6 to 3 out of 6. Whereas like White Scars was literally, no matter what the scenario was, no matter what you're wounding on, right? Like the better, so you're wounding guardsmen with a power fist, right? You're wounding them with 2s. You don't do anything with your Blood Angels +1 to hit the wound on the charge. You're only wounding on 2s, but like you're always getting +1 damage on the charge when you're White Scars. And granted, yeah, maybe if you've got a damage 6 weapon, it doesn't matter as much with +1 damage. But so many units that were +1, that were just 1 damage weapons, were seeing that kind of an increase in output, that it was like, this is so much better than everything else.
Why would I take the bolter drill one for Imperial Fist when I could just double my damage and buy the best units?
Yeah, it was kind of silly. So that's the kind of thing we don't want to see. We don't want to see that. We want to see like, oh, when you advance, if you're white scars, you get +1 to your advance roll. That's what the level of thing I want to see.
Yeah,
you move this much more. If when you advance with the white scars, if you roll a 1 or a 2, it counts as a 3 when you advance. That.
They also have to be careful with Space Marines in particular. I know this is not going to be popular to say, but Space Marines make up such a huge number of their armies because, unlike every other race in the game, Space Marines get their armies divided into 8 codexes, and so they get the most stuff already. They have to be careful about baseline rules for Space Marines and then chapter-specific rules for Space Marines, not in itself being a combo, whereas like other players aren't going to get that. You know, if you're a Tau player or a Tyranids player or a Necrons player, you're going to have like 1 detachment of rules or 1 set of faction rules. You don't get to combine 2 things. Space Marines have always kind of had that. So even when their units are moopy, their rules and their stratagems combined, the amount of things they have access to just ends up making them good. Every top 8's always filled with them. I don't know. They have to be careful there. And the reason I say it's unpopular to say that is because I've seen discussions everywhere about 11th edition 40K, and Space Marine players just take over everything. They take over the discussions, and they want the game to just be about their stuff. They want it to be like Horus Heresy. It's like, we need every chapter now to have its own detachment, its own chapter master, its own upgrade sprue. We want the Carcharodons and the Emperor's pubes and every single faction you can think of. Like they're trying to think that they need all their own special rules. Like there's other.
So you've got 20 factions in the game over here, and you've got 20 Space Marine factions, because you've got every single successor that has a name in any kind of lore piece.
Yeah. And it's like, that's not what the whole game is. And the 40K universe is very different than it was during the Crusade. And so I don't know. I know they have to milk the cow, but they really have to be careful, because what will happen is, not only depending on what we will see, because there's a lot of rules we don't know yet, is soup will always be the biggest problem when the Imperium's involved. And then how many rules are they going to give to Space Marines? Because then it'll just be another instance of every Space Marine player plays that chapter. Whatever it is that gets the most free rules, that's the one they'll play. Your blue guys with yellow trim are actually salamanders or whatever, right? Like, yeah.
So we'll see. Again, we got a few weeks to go before that edition comes out. I'm sure we'll get drip fed some more info.
I am excited overall.
Weeks.
Like,
me too.
Yeah,
me too.
On the Primarch discussion, what do you think? We've seen artwork for Proto-Rabo. Is he getting a model anytime soon?
I have a lot to say about the Primarchs, but I think we have to wait for another discussion. I want to say yes. I want to say everything we've been talking about Primarchs in general. Yes.
Okay. We can have a discussion about the Primarchs. It'll be and it'll be layered. It'll be dense. It'll have a myriad of flavors. It'll be like the beef Wellington of discussions.
Sure. But to be continued.
Continue.